Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in today. Today we'll be talking about PDFTron's technology, just kind of doing a high-level overview for anyone interested in what PDFTron is all about and how our technology works. Just a bit of background, so about myself, my name is Gravesdale. I'm Head of Solution Engineering at PDFTron, and I've been here since 2012, helping prospective customers learn about PDFTron's technology, how they can go about leveraging it within their applications, and just how it all works. Now, just a bit of background about PDFTron as a company. So PDFTron started in the late 90s, around the time that the PDF specification was first published. Our initial offering, which we still provide, is a native toolkit called PDFTron SDK. And the idea of this toolkit is that it helps out our customers who are software developers, and it helps them to provide document technology within their solutions and applications. So if they're developing software, they might have a need for their users to be able to view different kinds of documents, not just PDFs, but all kinds of different files. And they might have the need to view them, maybe make some kinds of edits within them. Things like, if we're talking about a PDF document, being able to highlight different things or fill out forms, maybe do some signing of a document, or even sort of deeper manipulations of the file, like rearranging pages or changing the text on a page, or say redacting sensitive information from a document. And so rather than end users having to figure out how to do all of that themselves, maybe by setting up their own software or something like that and downloading files, what PDFTron's technology enables our customers to do is to keep their users entirely within their application, whether that's on the web or within a native toolkit. And that way, users don't need to figure out how to solve these problems themselves. They can just do so within whatever application they're using in a kind of seamless manner. And so what we'll be doing here today is kind of demoing this technology to give a more concrete view of this. It's easy to just kind of talk about all of this at a high level, but by actually sort of seeing it in action, it makes it much easier to figure out how these benefits can trickle down to one's user base. So that's what we'll be doing here today. I'm going to start up a live demo based around PDFTron's website. And then what we'll do is just kind of go over some of the more common features and how those really benefit the end users of our customers. So I'll be starting off today by going to pdftron.com, and this is where I'll be loading our live demo from. I'm actually going to get to everything from one fantastic menu on our site, and this is just a great menu to know about. It's this developers menu here, and this is how I'm going to launch our live demo, just by clicking on Launch Demo here. But there's all kinds of very interesting things that you can get to from this developers menu, so I really wanted to go over it in some detail. So the very first thing is that you can go to our guides here, and this shows, on the left you can see our different offerings. So WebViewer here under Web, and then under Mobile, Desktop, and Server, you'll find our native toolkits. So PDFTron SDK, some of our command line tools, our server-side components like WebViewer Server, and so on. But what I'm going to be really focusing on is WebViewer, because that's what our demo kind of showcases, because it's a web-based sample. So that's what I'll be kind of showing here in the demo today. And in our guides here, you can actually download WebViewer itself. So if you wanted to try WebViewer, the SDK itself within your application, so maybe within your website or within your web app, or if you have some sort of native application that you wanted to integrate it into, say in a browser control, you can do all of that by downloading the toolkit. And here in our Get Started guides, we have different ways of getting started with it and setting it up. So if there is a particular, say, development framework that you're using, like React or Angular or Vue.js, you can find our specific guides around that. So how to take the toolkit and integrate it into each of those platforms. We have walkthrough videos for each of those, as well as step-by-step guides. We also have guides around integrating WebViewer within various other third-party systems that you might have. Things like putting a WebViewer into a Salesforce page, or integrating it directly inside of SharePoint. And then we have a variety of other guides here that kind of walk through different use cases. So whether that's getting conversion happening inside of the browser, or maybe enabling digital signatures so that you can have users digitally sign documents, searching through files, optimizing files, measuring blueprints, and supporting third-party file types like video or audio or BIM content. All of that are things that we walk through here on our site. So I'd encourage everyone to go there and check that out. And if you like what you see today, then maybe download the toolkit and try it out inside of your application. But if you're not quite ready to download the toolkit, our live demo is a great way to try out the technology beforehand. And so that's what I'm kind of going to be demonstrating here today. So the first thing I'll be sort of showing off is PDFTron's loading of documents. That's something that we've put a lot of work into to make sure that for end users, they're able to load up very large files very quickly. Oftentimes that's kind of the sticking point with other solutions, whether that's downloading documents and viewing them with native software, or whether it's solutions that have, say, server somewhere where you upload your documents and that enables you to view. With WebViewer, what we've done is architect the solution and really fine-tune everything so that we're able to load up documents very quickly, regardless of how big that gets. So for example, we're able to support 2 GB files within WebViewer and load them up quite performantly, and that's true as well of documents that have many pages too. So for example, if we have a document here in our samples that has 13,000 pages, you'll notice that I'm able to load that up right away, and I can even jump around inside of the document, and it's pretty performant too. So here, if I jump to somewhere in the middle of the document, we see at first there is a blank page, but then after the content downloads to the browser, we're able to render that. And you'll notice that I didn't have to wait for the entire file to download completely before I was able to start rendering it. Like, we were able to see those first few pages right away, and then I could jump to the middle, and we could see that pretty quickly as well. And the reason we're able to get such performance out of WebViewer with these very large documents is that we support a feature of the PDF format called linearization. And what linearization means is that the bytes of a PDF file are organized on disk in a kind of page-by-page way. So at the very beginning of the file are all of the bytes needed to render page 1. And following that, we'll have all the bytes needed to render page 2, and so on all throughout the file. And if we wanted to render the 100th page, we could just jump to a location in the file, grab those bytes, and start rendering the 100th page right away. And we're able to take advantage of that in WebViewer to give a much more performant experience. So we're able to start loading up the document and presenting the user with the rendered page right away. And it also means that even if we have very large documents, we don't need to store the whole thing in memory. Rather, what we can do is just download the bytes that we need to render whatever is currently visible on screen, and just show that. And so that way we can kind of keep a sort of constant size memory footprint in the browser, so that even if we're viewing files that are 2 GB in size or have tens of thousands of pages, we're not totally blowing up the memory here inside of the browser, and keeping everything performant for the end user. So it's quite a powerful feature of the PDF format, and one that we take full advantage of here inside of WebViewer. Besides the improved loading speed, another big advantage of having the actual PDF bytes here in the browser is that we can offer a lot more features and a much more rich experience in terms of viewing and editing and so on for the end user. So for example, if I have this document here and I want to zoom into it, so I'm going to use our marquee zoom feature. As you can see, as I zoom into this text, initially it's blurry, but then that gets replaced with a more accurate sort of rendering here. It might be easier to see if I zoom in a little more. So I'm going to zoom more into this O. And I think I can actually keep going here in terms of the zoom levels that WebViewer allows. We can actually get pretty far in. And as you'll see, as I was zooming in, sometimes it was a little blurry, but then that got replaced with kind of this very crisp line here, this rendering at the appropriate zoom level. And so what's going on there is that the code running inside of the browser here is able to create a rendition of the document at the correct level, however far I zoom in here. And so, if I have very small text or very fine-grained details, or maybe a blueprint with a lot of very small information on it, I'm able to zoom in and see that rendered accurately instead of kind of in a blurry way. And so that means, of course, if I'm building something based off of a drawing, then that's going to be accurate. And it means that if there's hard to read text or fine print, that I can really zoom in and see exactly what that is inside of the document and get an accurate rendering of it. It's a much different experience than simply relying on a service that converts a PDF document into an image that then gets just blown up inside of the browser. So it's a much better kind of overall experience for users of these documents. And additionally, there are other kinds of features that we can take advantage of if we have the full PDF document here itself in the browser. And for example, if there are toggleable layers, like for example this the ability in some PDF documents to switch optional content on or off, that's something that we can do here in WebViewer right away. So I can click this, toggle this to show this content or not, and it's able to switch that rendering immediately. And that's because it doesn't have to go across the internet to some server and say, hey server, could you re-render this page, but without the background or without the title, and then send that image back. All of that round trip can really add up for the end user and make for a very slow and not very performant experience. But when you're doing everything here in the browser with code that's just running locally, then it's much more similar to, say, like a native desktop experience and using native desktop software. So it's a much better experience overall and less frustrating for end users. Besides simply viewing PDF documents, we have the ability to edit them as well. And I'll be sort of walking through some different kinds of editing, but the most common thing we hear about is the need to annotate PDF documents. So essentially taking just a PDF that somebody has published and being able to do things like add highlights or maybe strike through text, just kind of to comment on a document. So here I'm going to underline some text, but I could also do things like highlight it or draw different shapes over the document as well. So we support things like maybe drawing a rectangle or creating a circle or something like that. So all of the sort of PDF tools that one might expect are kind of available out of the box. Things like inserting stamps or signatures, which we'll go into in more detail later on. The ability to measure things within a document, which is especially valuable if you have a blueprint or a drawing that you need to be able to estimate the materials for. And some additional annotation types that we'll go into later in the presentation. But if there is some new kind of shape you'd like to draw or some annotation that you'd like to add your own logic into, we do have custom annotation guides within our documentation. So it's very easy to go in and create your own kind of shape or annotation tool that behaves however you need. And additionally, we've actually taken our full UI source code and posted that to GitHub. So if there's anything really about the entire WebViewer user interface, whether that's sort of how the pages are laid out or what different tools look like in the viewer, you can take all of that and customize it with that open code. So really, if there's anything about how WebViewer looks or behaves that you'd like to change, that's quite customizable. In addition to how these annotations are made here within a specific document, we can also share those annotations with other users. So there are a couple of ways we might go about doing it. We could actually save off a copy of this PDF. Like if I were to, from inside of here, save as or download a copy of this document, we would see that those annotations would be essentially burned into the document and available as editable annotations within other PDF software. So that's one way of going about sharing annotations with other users. But WebViewer is actually flexible enough to support real-time collaboration between multiple users, where one user can make an annotation and then share it immediately with another user. And we have that here inside of this demo. So here what we have is, it's just coming up on one page for demonstration purposes, but the idea is that we have one user named Ruby who might be on one machine, with the web browser open, viewing this document, and then maybe around on the other side of the world we've got Cedric on Cedric's machine viewing the same document from Cedric's browser. And as Ruby makes an annotation, we see that shows up right away for Cedric. And so Cedric can see, that same exact annotation in real time, and then Cedric could make an annotation of their own as well, and that shows up instantly for Ruby. And that's because what we're doing is we're taking an XML representation of these annotations, and we're just shipping the XML around. So we're actually leaving the underlying PDF document read-only and just shipping the XML for these annotations. And that makes for a very performant process, and it also means that even if we have a very large PDF document, we're not having to double our storage every time that somebody makes an annotation. We're not having to save off, say, a 2 gigabyte PDF file every time somebody just draws a box on top of it. Rather, what we can do is just isolate those changes in their own XML layer and then send them off to another browser. And another really cool thing about this is that for each of these annotations that we're making, we're actually implicitly creating a comment thread based around that annotation. So essentially sort of anchored to this place in the document, we have a little discussion thread that different users can use to communicate and drive a workflow forward. So imagine if maybe Ruby and Cedric were doing a kind of review and approval workflow on this document. Like maybe they both have to collaboratively edit this file, look for any problems or regulatory issues or misspellings or whatever, and flag those and kind of figure out how to resolve them. So maybe Ruby is looking at this and saying, this needs to be revised a bit. And so Ruby might want to send an alert to Cedric saying, Cedric, @Cedric, to maybe get Cedric's attention. And this is something that's very open inside of WebViewer. So this could be like an email that gets sent to Cedric, or an additional task inside of a workflow system within your application. However you'd like to have users alert each other of something they need to pay attention to. However that's getting leveraged in this application. Ruby is alerting Cedric, hey, let's reword this. So, hey, let's reword this. And click Save. And then we see on Cedric's machine as well, if I open up the comments, here's this comment from Ruby saying, hey, let's reword this. And Cedric can reply and alert Ruby, no, it's perfect. And alert Ruby that no, we're not going to be rewording this. And then we actually have built-in annotation states for each of these conversations. So if you've ever used a commenting system like maybe Office 365 or Google Docs, where they have little annotation states associated with each conversation, it's much the same kind of thing here. So we can say accepted or rejected or canceled. And maybe Cedric was going to say, I'm going to reject this. And this wording is just perfect. We're not going to change anything at all about it, and that way they can send that annotation state over to Ruby, and both of them can move on to the next item. And these annotation states here are ones that are listed in the PDF specification as being sort of the default ones with an annotation thread. But this is fully customizable. So if you wanted to change these inside of WebViewer to whatever workflow your users are following, that would be possible as well. Now, beyond making annotations on top of a document, we have other ways of manipulating the file as well. And another very common use case is the need to fill out PDF forms. Let me kind of show off some of that capability here inside of our demo. So if I go into search for capabilities here, and I type in form, we have a couple of different capabilities that come up. I'll start off with form filling and then kind of describe some of our other capabilities too. So one of them is the ability to simply fill in PDF forms, and this might be a little unsurprising if you used PDF documents in the past. So for example, the income tax return that the IRS issues, this is a little older one, but still works for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to type in my first name here, and then I'm going to tab away from the field. And then something kind of cool happens, which is that over here what we're doing is dumping the values of the form field programmatically into an object. And if you're kind of wondering what the purpose of this is, the idea is that it shows how you can take the data from a form that you're filling out inside of WebViewer and programmatically do whatever you wish to it. So you could just have the user fill out this form just as is. But now that we actually know the first name and we know the form form field that's part of. This is the form field name that was baked into the PDF at a low level, essentially when the IRS made this form initially. So we know if we have a copy of this form that this is the form field for the first name, and we know that the value that the user placed inside of it was Aaron. And so what we can do at this point is we could, if we had a database of users somewhere, we could go off and query for everyone with the first name Aaron. And maybe in case that's a somewhat rare name, we might be able to say, oh, we only have one user with that information, and we could actually do something like pre-fill programmatically the rest of this form in here. So we could put in the last name automatically, maybe the address automatically, and so on. And the reason that can be beneficial, there are a few different reasons. One of them is that now we've saved the time. I don't have to manually type in my name and take however long it is to fill out my home address in here. Maybe it's not that long, but still that's a little bit of time savings that I'm incurring. But the more important part of pre-filling forms for end users is that I can do so automatically with data from my database. Theoretically, whatever is in the database is going to be a lot more hygienic than whatever the user happens to pass in. So it's likely to have fewer errors. It's more likely to be the correct address for that user. And even if it's my own address, I might still accidentally, maybe I'm typing things in quickly or recklessly, and I might make a mistake or something. And usually that's not a big deal. Sometimes you fill out a form and it's no problem. But sometimes it can have big ramifications. Here, this is a great example with this U.S. Income tax return. Definitely there are ways I could fill this out incorrectly where that would have bad repercussions on me, right? So if there's a way to fill this out automatically and to reduce errors within this form, there could be bigger savings beyond just the times saved from filling it out. So this capability and this extensibility of the toolkit can have real knock-on effects for end users. Beyond just filling in forms, I can also add new forms onto a document from inside of WebViewer. So as we saw, when I typed in forms here into our capabilities, there were a few things that came up. And what I'm going to be showing now is the form building capability. So in theory, maybe this is a document, say, that was, I don't know, faxed or scanned or something like that, or maybe somebody just typed up a new form inside of Word and then converted that into PDF, but didn't actually add any true form fields onto it. And so that's pretty useful, but a lot of times what we want is an actual true fillable form, because that's so much easier for end users. They can just click on a particular form field and start signing it or filling out text. So what I'm going to do is just add a few form fields onto this document here. So for example, where we have the defendant, I'm going to add in a text form field. And then where we have a signature, I'm going to type in this officer's signature here. And click OK. And then when I apply fields, we see that it actually fills in some of this information. So it turns it into fillable form fields. So here where we have the defendant, I could type my name into that. And we see, it's just as easy as typing that in. And additionally, when signing, because now it's a true signature field, what I can do is actually apply my signature here, my full signature, maybe my initials here. Pardon the penmanship, and I can create that and add that onto the page. So this is quite a useful way of making documents kind of born digital again. So maybe if I had a scanned or faxed copy, what I could do is use this to turn this back into a document that's a little more usable. Another way I can do that is through OCR. So for example, if I have a document that's scanned or faxed or something, a lot of times the providers of those documents will output a PDF copy that's just made from one large image, like this document actually is. So if I hover my mouse over this text here, we can see it's not allowing me to select the text or anything like that. If I try searching this document, I can't search for any text within it, so I'm going to search for the word THE, and it's not finding anything. Despite that clearly being in the document itself. So, how can I turn this into a more usable document again? And then the way I can do so is with something called OCR, or optical character recognition. And this is something that we can't run inside of the browser itself, but we can run this on a server. So if you were to deploy a server within your environment and to take our native PDFTron SDK toolkit and use that within an application server side, then you can provide the same sort of OCR that we're able to show in this demo here. And what I'm going to do is click Apply OCR here. And what that's doing is taking this PDF document here in the browser, shipping that off to a demo server that we have that's running our OCR toolkit. And what it's doing is detecting that text on the page and making a new PDF document out of it. And that document is made up of that same image that we had before, but now on top of that, we've overlaid selectable invisible text. And we can actually see that in action if we hover the mouse over that text. I can go in and I could copy it out. I could do things like highlight it, and it means that I can search for that text now. So now if I search for THE, inside of the document, we see all these different search results, and I'm able to scroll through, see the surrounding text, and jump to the particular instance that's most relevant to me. So this kind of capability of being able to OCR documents as well as the form building capability of WebViewer means that I'm able to take documents that are kind of hard to work with, just made up of images, really devoid of a lot of the useful features of PDF, and I can add those features back in and turn this back into a more usable document again. So it's a pretty powerful mechanism, and something that makes it possible to work with many more documents than otherwise. Beyond just selecting and annotating text, with WebViewer we actually have the ability to modify the text on a PDF page. That's something that we've been able to add in recently, thanks to new technology that we've acquired. It's something that we're pretty excited about. So essentially what we can do is automatically detect sections of text on a PDF page. So this is pretty important because sometimes when you're naively editing a PDF document with a lot of different software, what it will do is kind of enable you to edit a run of text, so like a single line of text, and add text into it or remove it. But it tends to override other text or run off the end of the page and so on because it's not dealing with the document on a paragraph by paragraph way. It's not able to detect a paragraph of text and reflow the text within that paragraph. But that's something that WebViewer technology is able to do. And that has a couple of different effects. So one of them is that we can move text around here directly on the page, so I can take that line of text and just shuffle it all the way to the bottom. Another thing is that I can resize paragraphs as well. So let's say I wanted to kind of move this paragraph around here. You'll notice that that walkthrough word then wrapped to the next line in a sensible way. It didn't include any existing text or anything like that, it means essentially that I can edit the text inside of this paragraph just as I would with other document editing software. I can also go through and do things like modify styling on the document. So I can add italicization or bold text, or I can change the font and so on inside of the document. So it's quite a powerful mechanism and something that we're quite excited to be able to offer. In addition to editing text on the page, we also support editing images as well. So if you'd like to move around an image on a PDF document or resize it, that's a capability that's just directly inside of WebViewer, and makes it a lot easier to make small adjustments to a PDF file after it's been created. Of course, not all changes are ones that we want to make within a PDF page. Sometimes we want to manipulate PDF documents at the page level itself. So for example, I might want to take a PDF page and just leave it as is, leave all the text the same and annotations and form fields and so on, and I might want to just rotate that page, or maybe I want to take the first page and move it to the end of the document. And so with WebViewer we have that out of the box as well. So for example, I could leave the first page as is and just rotate it, or I could drag and drop that here in our thumbnails into later on inside of the document. So I can move it from the first page to the second page. And similarly, I can extract pages or merge documents together. One really intuitive interface we have for doing so is our document assembly UI. So what we can do is bring up two different web viewers on a single PDF page, maybe showing two different documents. And if I bring up the thumbnails panel in each, I can actually assemble new documents just by dragging and dropping thumbnails to the new document. So this can be a very useful way of going about maybe splitting up a file that is made up of a bunch of different documents and kind of splitting those into their own individual documents, or if I want to maybe make a presentation by grabbing different slides from different other presentations that I've made and kind of assembling them into one custom one. All of that is possible with WebViewer. Now, on top of adding new content or filling out form fields or changing the text on a PDF page or moving pages around, we also have a lot of requests for being able to remove content from a PDF document. A lot of our customers come to us trying to look for some way of eradicating personally identifying information or personal health information or confidential or secure information from a document. And that redaction process is something that can happen inside of WebViewer as well. In fact, WebViewer is very well suited for it because, again, it's not sending that document content off to some server to be processed. All of the processing happens here within the client-side browser, and that really matters when we're dealing with very sensitive or confidential content, because if that's being sent over a network somewhere, then that's information that could be lost, that could be discovered by a malicious third party. And by keeping everything on the machine, in an offline way, in a secure way, that keeps all of that information locked down. So that's why we get so many requests for redaction inside of WebViewer. And to make that a bit easier, we've actually created a streamlined interface to make the whole redaction workflow much more intuitive and much easier to manage. Redaction, this removal of sensitive information, can be typically a kind of multi-stage process where you might have human beings or even an automated process that looks for particular parts of the document that might need redaction, and then often you'll have somebody go through and kind of approve that and say, okay, does this actually need to be removed from this document or not? And if so, then actually kind of push the button and say, yes, let's remove that from this copy. And so because it's a multi-stage process, we've sort of tuned this this interface kind of around that process. And how it works is in two stages. First, we'll make annotations showing areas that should be redacted, and then we can go in and review and approve those annotations, and then if everything looks good, then we can redact based on those annotation locations. So let me show off a little bit how this works. So here in our showcase, we can draw boxes around areas that might need redaction. So let's say this is an invoice that we're mailing to somebody, and what I'm going to do is black out the name and address of the person that we're mailing this to. So maybe that doesn't need to be kept in our invoice records. Now, I just drew that manually, but that's something that could be added programmatically if it was always at the same location. Another thing we can do is search through the document and use those search results as ways of finding areas to redact. So, for example, phone numbers maybe are something that we just by default tend to view as a bit sensitive and personal. And maybe what we're going to do is search for those and add redaction rectangles around those, as possible areas where we might be redacting content. And we can do that for a few different other search strings that we have built in here. These are just regular expressions that we're using, but these could be any regular expressions you wish. So we have pre-built ones for credit card numbers and for email addresses and so on. But regular expressions are a quite powerful and versatile tool that you can use to redact any sort of search string. And then additionally, what we've done in our user interface is where we normally would have an annotation and a conversation thread and so on. What we have instead is a listing of each of the redactions along with a type of redaction here. So a little phone icon showing that this is a phone number. One for a region that was drawn manually, one for a credit card number, and then we can go in and review and approve each of these. So, for example, up here we've detected the phone number for the people issuing the invoice and potentially keeping this invoice record. So maybe their phone number isn't at all confidential. This is like the public phone number for a business. So this is fine if this information gets out. So I'm going to remove this redaction annotation here, and you'll notice that box is no longer there. So when I go in and click redact all, that actually won't be removed. But the phone numbers elsewhere in the document, maybe the personal phone numbers or our credit card numbers of the users and so on, those are removed as well. Here, the credit card numbers, for example, in this part of the document are removed. And we see that the area that I drew, so that rectangle that I drew over the page, that's also been redacted as well. And this is actually a true redaction we're performing on the document. So what we're doing is going through and editing the document at a low level to remove any content from underneath that black rectangular area. So it's totally blank underneath there. It's not discoverable by like removing that black rectangle or anything like that. And another thing is that that's all fully customizable too. So instead of just a black rectangle, maybe where I'm redacting this phone number down here, what I could do is just have a box with the word phone number inside of it. So that can give kind of a semantically meaningful redaction to this pseudonymization of this document here. So these are all pretty powerful techniques for anonymizing this content and making a copy that can be disseminated publicly and is still useful and can still be read through like any other document. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I really hope this demo has been helpful and informative. If you'd like to learn more about PDFTron.com or try out our software, please come to PDFTron.com and feel free to reach out to myself and my team. Happy to help with any questions or to help you get started. Thank you so much.